Okay, last thing we have to do for this section then is look at ultrasounds. Okay, the average human, if there's such a thing, can hear from 20 hertz to about 20,000 hertz. Okay, so they can detect sound waves or air particles that are vibrating 20 times a second up to 20 kilohertz, 20,000 times a second. Although that's not strictly true because the older you get, this number actually tends to decrease. So when we're in class next, we will do a little test and see how good everyone's hearing is. We tend to do this in year 8, and in year 8, most of our pupils can hear up to about 20,000 hertz. By the time you get to A level, and we do this again, that usually is dropped down to about 16,000. Not that it matters that much because they're very high frequency sounds you probably don't want to be hearing anyway. Um, but it is through, if you listen to loud music, if you listen to headphones a lot, that tends to drop quicker than normal. But this is a range of human hearing, but it's not the range of all sounds. Because dogs, cats, bats, dolphins can all hear sounds that are higher than 20,000 hertz. The air particles are still vibrating. It's still a sound wave as such. It's just beyond the range that human ears can detect. We call any sound that is outside this range of human hearing, above 20,000 hertz, we call ultrasound. So something that is 20,001 hertz is ultrasound. Something that is a million hertz is ultrasound. Anything lower than 20 hertz in this range is called infrasound, but we're not too concerned about that. Now, we have a number of uses then of ultrasound, and probably the one you're most, the kind of most common one you might know of is its uses in medicine. So we can use ultrasound scans to build up a picture of inside the human body, and this is most commonly used to kind of picture fetus's development inside the womb. Um, Another thing that is used for picturing the inside of the human body is X-rays, but X-rays there's dangers associated with them, particularly for the developing fetus. Therefore, we tend to use ultrasound instead. How ultrasound works is that's the mother's belly, and this is the little fetus. We have a little kind of microphone that produces frequencies of sound that are higher than 20,000 hertz. Sound goes down, it gets reflected by any hard surfaces, such as the bones that are developing, it gets reflected back. This can also detect those sounds, um, times how long that takes, and from that we can tell how far away this portion is. And by doing that multiple times, we can build up a little picture of what is going on inside the womb. Um, Ultrasounds can also be used to break up kidney stones. Um, Kidney stones are like little mineral deposits that build up inside the kidneys. Um, it used to be, it's very, very painful. It used to be if you had them, you would need to undergo surgery. So they would slice you open. They would then remove this, stitch you up. Be quite a long recovery time. There's risk of complications there, of infections. So instead, what they do is they use ultrasounds, which remember is a high frequency sound wave. They pass in, they get absorbed by the kidney stones if it's exactly the right frequency. That can cause the kidney stones to vibrate, and as they vibrate, they break apart. And then they can just be, how should we put it, passed out the way things are normally passed out from your kidneys. Ultrasound is also used in physiotherapy because the sound contains energy that can, if it gets absorbed, it can cause tissues to heat up, and that can or appear to aid healing in some ways. Another use of ultrasound then is industrial cleaning. Sometimes we might have things that we don't want to use chemicals on to clean them. So what we can do is we can use ultrasound that causes it to vibrate and shakes off the dust off those things. Um, it's also used in industry sometimes as a way of detecting cracks and things like that. In the same way that we can use it to form pictures inside the womb, we can use ultrasound to form pictures inside pipes and machinery and things like that. Um, Third use we've come across before, which is if we have a little boat, um, it can send sound waves down to the bottom of the ocean to kind of map how deep the sea is. it can also be used to detect a school or shoal of fish. So we can then find fish more easily. If you're not hunting fish, or maybe hunting submarines, if we have a submarine, we can use sound waves to detect it, use that echo. It used to be we would use sound waves that were detectable by the human ear. And therefore, what you're talking about here in this case is you just have a speaker that produces a ping, travels through the water, hits off the submarine, and goes back again. You time how long that takes, you can tell how far away the submarine is. But it's quite frightening for the people who are inside the submarine because they could hear those pings as well and they knew they were getting hunted. Um, Nowadays, we tend to use ultrasound rather than sound for the reason that high frequency sound waves tend to spread out less. Therefore, we get a finer beam, and that allows us to tell more easily what direction everything is in as well. Okay, so there's some uses for ultrasound. I would just read over those little descriptions and understand the uses.